Hi everyone, so in this video I'm going to show you how to crochet these cute granny squares. So for my squares I used a 6.5mm crochet hook and worsted weight yarn. So thank you very much for watching, and please make sure to subscribe to my channel for more crochet videos. So to begin your granny square, you want to start off by making a magic circle. So to do a magic circle, take your yarn and take your finger and wrap the yarn around your finger once. And you then want to wrap the yarn back over your finger to create a cross, like that. You then want to take your crochet hook and go underneath the first loop of the cross, and you may need to pull it up a little bit, so go underneath the first loop, and then using your crochet hook, pick up the second loop of the cross and pull it through. And you can then take your finger out, and there you have a magic circle, and we are ready to begin round one. So we are now on to round one of our granny square, and to begin this round you want to chain one, and this chain one does not count as a stitch. This just locks our magic circle into place. So now for round one we are going to do 8 sets of puff stitch, then chain one. So we're going to do puff stitch, then chain one into the magic circle 8 times. So we're going to begin our very first set, and we're going to start off by doing a puff stitch. So to do a puff stitch, you want to yarn over and go down into the magic circle and yarn over and pull up a loop, then yarn over and go back down into the magic circle again for a second time, and yarn over and pull up a loop, and then yarn over and go back down into the magic circle for a third time, and yarn over and pull up a loop. And you should now have 7 loops on your hook. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we have yarned over, gone into the magic circle and pulled up a loop 3 times, and you should have 7 loops on your hook. And now to complete the puff stitch, we're going to yarn over and pull through all of these loops, pull through all 7 loops to complete the stitch. So go slowly and pull through every single loop, and this can be a little bit tricky, especially with this first puff stitch, so just take it nice and slowly. And then once you have done your first puff stitch, you want to chain one. So there we have done our first set of puff stitch, then chain one into the magic circle. And like I said, for round one, we need to do 8 sets in total. So we're going to move on to our second set. So our second set of puff stitch, then chain one. So yarn over and go into the magic circle and pull up a loop. Then yarn over and go back down into the magic circle for a second time and pull up a loop. Then yarn over and go back down into the magic circle and pull up a loop for a third and final time. So now you should have 7 loops on your hook, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and you want to yarn over and pull through every single loop to complete the stitch. And like I said, just go nice and slowly when doing that last step. So there we have done our second puff stitch, and now you want to chain one. So there I have my second set of puff stitch, chain one into the magic circle. So I need to do 6 more sets for round one. So yarn over, go into the magic circle and do my third puff stitch. like that, and then chain 1. So there I have my 3rd set. So now I'm going to do my 4th set in the exact same way. Work a puff stitch, and then chain 1. So there I have 4 sets of puff stitch, chain 1, and just keep working that into your magic circle until you have 8 sets. So I have just finished working all of those 8 sets for round 1. So I have finished off by doing my very last set of puff stitch, then chain 1. And now to finish off round 1, we are going to close up our magic circle and join. So to close up the magic circle, you want to take your end or your tail here and simply pull this nice and tight. So pull this as tight as you can, and that will close up the magic circle. And then to join, we're going to do a slip stitch into the first puff stitch that we worked. So here is the first puff stitch, and if you're not sure which stitch to go into, then you can count back 16 stitches. So count back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and that will take you to your first puff stitch here and the stitch that you need to do a slip stitch into. So insert your hook into this stitch, into the very first puff stitch, and yarn over and pull through both loops on your hook. So work a slip stitch. And now you can fasten off, so pull your yarn out and your hook and cut your yarn, leaving a tail to weave in or work over later. So cut your yarn and pull it out. And there we have finished round 1, and we are ready to move on with round 2. So we are now on to round 2 of our granny square. And to begin this round, we're going to start off by attaching our new yarn or our new colour to our work. So to attach your new yarn, you want to take your work, so take round 1 like this, and insert your hook into any of the chain 1 spaces. So it doesn't matter which chain 1 space you choose, as this is just one circle, it doesn't matter which one you go into. So you could go into this chain 1 space, or this one, or the next one. It's completely up to you, but I'm going to go into this one here. So just insert your hook into this chain 1 space, and then take your new yarn, so I'm going with a cream colour, and place it over the end of your crochet hook and pull it through. And then you want to chain 1. So we're going to chain 1 to secure this yarn. And now we are ready to move on with the rest of round 2. To begin this round, we're going to start off by going down into this very first chain 1 space, so the space that you just attached your yarn into, and doing a puff stitch and then chain 1. So the same set of stitches that we used last round. So last round we did puff stitch, chain 1. We're going to do the exact same thing down into this space. So yarn over and go down into the chain 1 space, and I'm going to work over my end here and pull up a loop, yarn over, go down into the same space again and pull up a loop, then yarn over and go down into the same space for a third and final time and pull up a loop. And you should now have 7 loops on your hook, and yarn over and pull through all 7 loops. So there we have done our first puff stitch, and now chain 1. So we have done puff stitch, chain 1 down into this first space, and we're going to go back down into the exact same space again, so down into the same chain 1 space from last round, and we're going to do a second set. So a second set of puff stitch, then chain 1. So yarn over and go back down into the same space and work your second puff stitch in the exact same way as we have done lots of times before. Like that. And then chain 1. So there we have done 2 sets of puff stitch, chain 1, all into this space. And for the rest of round 2, we're just going to continue working that all the way around. So into every chain 1 space, we're going to do puff stitch, chain 1, puff stitch, chain 1. Then puff stitch, chain 1, puff stitch, chain 1 into the next space, and just continue this all the way around for this round. So I'm going to go on to the next chain 1 space here, and I'm going to do my first puff stitch. So yarn over, go into the next space, and I am still working over my end here, and do 1 puff stitch. So like that, so there I have that first puff stitch, and now chain 1, and then we're going to go back down into this exact same space again and do a second set of puff stitch, chain 1. So yarn over, go into the stitch, pull up a loop, and do that 2 more times. Then yarn over and slowly pull through all 7 loops on your hook, and then chain 1. So there we have 2 sets of puff stitch, chain 1 into that space, and continue to do that all the way around for round 2. So I have just finished working that all the way around for round 2. So I did my last 2 sets into this space here, and you should find that you have 16 sets in total for this round. So 16 sets of puff stitch, then chain 1. So I have 2 sets, 4 sets, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 and 16. And then to finish off this round, we're going to do a slip stitch into the first puff stitch that we worked. So here is that first puff stitch, and if you're not sure which stitch to go into, then you can count back 32 stitches. So you will count back 1, 2, 3, 4 all the way around to 32, and that should take you to this stitch here, and insert your hook into this stitch and yarn over and pull through both loops on your hook. So work a slip stitch, and then you can fasten off. So pull your yarn out and your hook and cut your yarn, leaving a tail to weave in or work over later. And now we are ready to move on with round 3. So we are now on to round 3, and in this round we're going to turn our circle, which we have here, into a square, and we're going to start off by attaching our new yarn to our work. So I'm going back with this blue colour, and you want to insert your hook into any of these spaces. So in round 3, we're going to be working in these spaces here. So in these chain 1 spaces. So if you have a look at our work, you can see that the puff stitches from last round kind of form these V's. So we have a V here and a V here and a V here. And in this round, we're going to be working in between these V's. So in the chain 1 space between the V's. So into this chain 1 space and this chain 1 space and this one and this one and this one. So in the chain 1 spaces between the V's. So you want to start off by choosing one of these chain 1 spaces. So I'm going to go with this one here, and it doesn't matter which one you choose as it's just a big circle. So insert your hook into the chain 1 space, and remember you must go in between one of the V's, not in these spaces here, actually in between the puff stitch V's. So go into the space, take your new yarn, place it over the end of your crochet hook and pull it through, and then chain 1 to secure the yarn. So take your yarn and chain 1. So there we have attached our new yarn to our work. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go down into this space here, so into this chain 1 space that we just attached our yarn into, and we're going to do 3 double crochets, then chain 2 and 3 double crochets all into this space. So yarn over and go down into this space, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2 loops, and then yarn over and pull through the final 2 loops on your hook. So there we have 1 double crochet. So now yarn over, go back down into the same space again and do a second double crochet, and then yarn over, go back down into the same space and do a third double crochet. So like that. So there we have 3 double crochets all into that space. So now you want to chain 2. So chain 1 and 2, and then yarn over and go back down into this exact same space again. So into the same space and do 3 more double crochets. So there we have 1, 2 and then 3. So there we have done 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets all into this space in between this V, and that is going to be the first corner of our square. So like I said, we are turning our circle into a square, and so to do that we need to add in 4 corners, and this is going to be our very first corner. So now what you want to do is you want to move on to this next space here, so in between this next V, and we're going to go into the space and just do 3 double crochets. So yarn over, go into the space in between this V and do 3 double crochets. So like that. So we have 3 double crochets into that space. And now into this next space here, in between this next V, we're going to do another corner. So we're going to do the same thing as we did here at the very beginning of the round. We're going to do 3 double crochets, chain 2, then 3 more double crochets all into this space. So yarn over, go down into this chain 1 space in between the V and do 3 double crochets. then chain 2, and then yarn over, go back down into the same space again and do 3 more double crochets. So like that, and there you can see we have created our next corner. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go to this next chain 1 space here, so in between this next V, and into this space we're going to do 3 double crochets. So yarn over, go down into the space and do 3 double crochets all into this one. Like that. And now for the rest of round 3, we're just going to continue to repeat that all the way around. So into this next chain 1 space here, so in between the next V, we're going to do another corner. So like we did here and here, we're going to do 3 double crochets, chain 2, then 3 double crochets, all into this space. Then into this next chain 1 space here, so in between this next V, we're going to do 3 double crochets. Then into this next one, we're going to do another corner, so 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets, all into this chain space. And then into the last chain space, we're just going to do 3 double crochets. So we are alternating between doing a corner, so 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets, and then just doing 3 double crochets into the next space. And you can see this is what a corner looks like. So it starts to give us the corner of our square. And then when we do just 3 double crochets into the space, this is what gives us one of the sides of the square. So this is a corner and this is a side. And we're just alternating between corner side, all the way around for round 3. So we did 3 double crochets into this space, so that was a side. So now into the next chain 1 space here, we're going to do our next corner. So we're going to do 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets, all into this space. So like that, so there we have our next corner. So now into the next chain 1 space here, in between this next V, we're going to do 3 double crochets, and that is going to give us our next side. So the next side of our square. So like that. And then we're going to finish off by doing a corner and then a side. So I have finished working that all the way around for round 3. So I have done 3 last double crochets into this last space here. And then to finish off the round and to finish off our granny square, we're going to do a slip stitch into the first double crochet that we worked. So here is the very first double crochet, and you want to go into this stitch and work a slip stitch. So yarn over and pull through both loops on your hook. So then once you have done a slip stitch, you want to fasten off, so pull your yarn out and your hook and cut your yarn, leaving a tail to weave in later. And then to finish off your granny square, you want to kind of pull your work out like this. So place your fingers in the corners and just pull it out to help give it its square shape. And then you want to weave all of your ends nice and securely into the back of your granny square. So flip your granny square over and then using a yarn needle, weave all of your ends nice and securely into the back. And before you weave your ends in, make sure that you pull the center of your granny square nice and tight. So pull this end that we started off with nice and tight, and that will close up the center. And then once you have done lots of granny squares and you have weaved the ends into the back, you can now start to sew them together. I have finished making my granny squares and I decided to just make 12 squares as I'm going to use these to make a cushion cover, but you can make as many squares as you like. You could make 30, 40, 50, 60, 100, 120. It's completely up to you depending on what you want to make. And then once you have made all of your granny squares, you want to go ahead and weave all of the ends into the back of the squares, or even better, it is best to weave in the ends into the back of each square once you have done it. So do a square, then weave all of the ends into the back, and then move on to your next square. That is the best way to do it, but if you have left all of your ends, go ahead and weave them in now, and then we can move on to joining our granny squares. So make sure that all of your ends are nice and securely weaved into the back of the squares before you start joining. So now you can join your squares using any method you like. There are lots of different methods that you can use. And what I'm going to do is in the description box below this video, I will leave a link to a previous tutorial that I have made that shows how I like to join my granny squares, and I'm going to use that exact same method to join these. So you can use whatever method you like, but to see how I like to join my granny squares, please see the description box below this video for a link to that tutorial. And in that tutorial, I use the slip stitch method. So I join the squares using the slip stitch, and that gives kind of a little ridge in between all of the squares. But if you want just a flat effect, so you don't want any ridges in between the squares and you want it to be completely flat, use that exact same method as shown in the tutorial, but replace the slip stitch with the whip stitch. So you will need to replace your crochet hook with a yarn needle. So use a yarn needle and then go all the way along using the same method as shown in the tutorial that is in the description box, but instead of using the slip stitch, use the whip stitch. And that will give you a nice flat effect. So you can use whatever method you like, but that is how I'm going to join my granny squares. So I have just finished joining all of my granny squares, and this is what I have. So I have joined all of my squares, and then you want to go ahead and weave all of your ends into the back of your work. And then if you like, you can add a border to your blanket or to whatever you have made. So I quickly added a single crochet border, which looks like this. So it's a really easy border to do. You just want to do one single crochet into each stitch around, and then into the corner stitches, do 3 single crochets. So you do one single crochet into each stitch up the side, and then when you get to the first corner, do 3 single crochets into this corner, then do 1 single crochet into each stitch along the top, then do 3 single crochets into the next corner here, and do that all the way along, and then join where you started, and then just repeat that round as many times as you like until you have the size border that you want. So that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it and found it easy to follow. Please make sure to subscribe to my channel for more crochet videos, and in the description box below this video I will leave a link to my Twitter. So if you would like to go and follow me on there, I always like to post updates and pictures of upcoming tutorials, and I would also love to see photos of your crochet work on Twitter as well. And in the description box I will also leave a link to where you can find some of my written patterns if you are interested. And thank you again for watching. Bye!